Hi everyone, I'm Jonathan Chu, and in this episode, my co-host Nancie Saw and I sit down with Alysha Baig, a neurodivergent clarity strategist whose work sits at the intersection of accessibility, design thinking, and beautifully simple problem solving. Diagnosed with dyslexia at 19, Alysha spent years navigating schools, university, and early childhood, wondering why reading a book took so much effort and why systems felt overwhelming. Instead of letting it limit her, she used it as a tool to help her notice patterns, friction points, and invisible gaps most people never see. Today, she helps founders and teams create clearer, more inclusive digital experiences, whether she is building tools for dyslexic users, designing neurodivergent friendly systems, or helping companies simplify complex ideas. Alysha's work revolves around one theme. Clarity is not a luxury, it is accessibility. So, in this conversation, we explore what dyslexia actually feels like from the inside, why clarity is a form of inclusion, and the gaps in how Malaysia understands learning differences, and how neurodivergence can become a strength in tech, design, and leadership. So this isn't a story about disability, it is a story about turning confusion into clarity for yourself and for others. Welcome, Alysha. So nice to have you.
Thank you. I'm glad I can be here with you guys.
Hi, Alysha.
Hi, Nancie.
So, Alysha, let's start with this. What a title, Neurodivergent Clarity Strategist. Could you tell us more about what it is all about and how did you even arrive to this title?
So essentially what I do is I help neurodivergent founders especially untangle messy problems and figure out a way to help them solve their problems in a way that works with their brains. Neurodivergent and neurotypical brains work very differently. And because I have developed tech as well as have dyslexia myself, I understand that the way that we tackle problems is very different. Because of my brain, I'm really good at solving problems and identifying things where it can be improved because neurodivergent brains are really good at systems.
So, speaking about systems, right? What were some of the projects that you have worked on that made you realize that, man, you're really good at that?
Oh, there's been so many. I've worked along so many different fields, including tech, like being a project manager for apps. So I went through the whole process of ideation to validation to getting funding to eventually selling 3 apps that I project managed, and also hiring in the process in the middle, hiring more developers and everything, which is when I realized that I'm good at building systems, because before I came into certain project management positions, the systems were haphazard and not very clear, and they were struggling with it. So I could come in and diagnose what needed to be more streamlined, what needed to be fixed, and things like that. But I've also worked on things like policy reform, and that also is a very different system, right? Policy and tech are total opposites. But because of my brain and with research and everything, I could figure out how to tackle policy reform versus pitching an app to a founder.
Right. So how about let's deep dive into them, because I'm pretty sure we have quite a number of listeners who want to do 2 things. The first is to delve into tech, and the second is to make a good impact. And we do have listeners who also have relations when it comes to public policy work. And I would love for them to also hear your story specifically in that area. But let's start with the tech component first. So what were some of the projects that you took on, and how did this special skill that you have enable you to make a difference?
I think it relates back to my disabilities, because I do have dyslexia as well as another rarer disability where I get blisters like on my skin, so like walking is hard. And with the second one, the disability EB, I was on college campuses in the US, which are usually massive. There's a lot of walking. There's a lot of like distance between like the library and your dorm or the canteen, cafeteria, or whatever you want to call it. So I was using an electric wheelchair at the time on my bad days because walking was hard. And it took me a ridiculous amount of time to find out which accessible routes I could take to get me like from my dorm to the library to like study. And that led me to basically build an app that acted like kind of like Google Maps, where it showed you routes that are accessible and friendly, and it shows you like how steep hills are, which handicap buttons work, things like that. So that was my idea, and I did get like $14K in funding for that. And
Wow.
I got to work with different organizations within the departments, actually within the university that I was in, and I found that each department had their own system and how they wanted the app to look like, but they weren't talking to each other. So you had like 5 variations of the app, and they're like, no, mine is better. No, I'm not talking to this department. So I designed like a system where they were forced to communicate with each other to build a working app that actually benefited people who use wheelchairs, students, even parents who have mobility issues and are coming to visit their children, and all the different things. So that was like my first example of where like I was like, okay, I can solve this problem. This is something I can do, which is what my first kind of experience was in being like a strategist in a sense.
And you had a few more other exciting projects that you have taken on as well.
Yes, I have done internships and worked with a lot of different industries, like I was saying, because of like a lot of stuff is because of my disabilities. And even it started like in high school, where I started realizing that my disabilities is not a disadvantage, but an advantage. Because of my dyslexia and because of my EB, I see things very differently than someone without a disability does. And instead of pitching myself or feeling sorry for myself, I realized that I can use it to build apps, I can use it to change policies, I can use it to solve other people's problems, which was really big change that I made when I was like 18, right? Like after high school, after graduating, because I was looking at like the future. I was looking at what job I wanted, you know, all the different things that started coming up when you graduate high school. And the app example that I talked about before just really emphasized that I was like, okay, I can use my disabilities to an advantage. If I didn't spend 4 hours trying to find the library with my electric wheelchair, I probably wouldn't have made that app.
Are you kidding me? 4 hours?
Yeah, I did the first time to find the library.
Wow. So how did it change from being frustrated to having that idea of, okay, I'm going to make this problem into an advantage. Instead of staying frustrated, I'm going to solve this problem.
I mean, don't get me wrong, I was frustrated. I was very upset. I think professors, when I was telling my friend, I was like, oh, you guys have it so easy. You can just walk up a hill and have no problems. Or you can open doors yourself. You don't need a button or whatever. But then I realized that like no one's gonna change it. If I don't do something, no one's gonna change the system. Which led me to like being like, okay, even if this app doesn't go anywhere, I can build it for myself so that I can benefit from it, which may sound very selfish. But I was just like, I can help myself.
No, I don't think
Or
so.
I can help other people. But my professor, the one who, when I was sharing the struggle with him, one of my professors, he was an entrepreneur professor, and he encouraged me to pitch this idea to investors, because every semester at the college I was at, they had pitches basically where you have like, I think 5 minutes it was, where you could pitch to real investors like Shark Tank style, essentially. And you have these really rich people who are judging everything and want to make, you know, want to help the world and share their money. And that is how I got the funding, where I got second place out of like 30 people who were pitching their ideas.
Wow.
Wow.
Yeah, and doing that.
That was the
like,
first one, right?
that was my first time. And I was 18 at the time.
Wow.
Yeah.
I'm sure it was very encouraging, and then it led you to want to develop more and find more problems. What else can I solve?
Yes. The hilarious part was that I was using it was off campus, this event, and I was using my wheelchair at the time, right? So I was trying to go upstairs to where the event was. And literally, there was a sign on the elevator saying, please call this number to get assistance. And I was
What?
like, I'm trying to pitch my idea to make the world more accessible. And I have to like call this guy who like didn't even answer his phone. So I had to like call my friend who was already upstairs and be like, bro, can you like help me find whatever the guy's name was and get him to unlock the elevator, like lift or whatever.
Oh my goodness.
And that is in US.
That was in the US, a smaller city in New York.
Malaysia will be so far behind. Wouldn't you
Yeah.
say so?
Yeah, that's why I say that was in the US. Imagine Malaysia. Maybe 3 days later, they will answer your call.
Oh no. But so in the last few minutes that we were talking, Alysha, what jumped out at me was the world calls it or sees it as disability. But if you were to look at the experiences that you have, I would say it's not at all a disability, but kind of like a superpower, something different, because it is your ability to see the world through a different angle, a different perspective, a different way that enabled you to be in front of investors at the age of 18, pitching your idea and, securing, was it like 14,000?
Yeah. It was like
14,000
14,000
USD.
in like
Yeah, how
5
many
minutes.
18-year-olds? Exactly, 5 minutes and you got 14,000. My goodness, what was I doing when I was 14 years old, right? Just thinking about what do I want to study in college. But you nailed that. So I would argue it's a, say, ability, not a disability.
Yeah, for sure. And I have had a few like talks to people with disabilities as well, and there's such a divide. Some people like me, they see their disabilities as like a superpower or like something unique that can be beneficial. But then you have people also on the opposite who are like, oh no, I can't do anything. I have a disability. It also relates to the fact that like a lot of people who don't have disabilities will use the word suffers. Like, you suffer from this disability, which really annoys me because I don't suffer from having dyslexia or any other disability. I have dyslexia. It's a very important language that empowers or at least doesn't put down people with disabilities.
Yeah.
It's like the same as I wouldn't say someone suffers from wearing glasses. Though glasses may be considered a disability in some sense, but I wouldn't use those words. You wear glasses or you have dyslexia.
Yeah, 100%. 100%. It's just something that you have, right?
Yeah, language really is important in that sense because language also helps identify or at least give perspective to the people you're talking to.
I'm writing that quote down. Language gives perspective to people. Nice. So
yeah, it's a very important thing. I always say language is important. How you talk to people or describe people.
Yeah. And even like how you see the world, right? Language has a way to shape what you perceive as reality, what you perceive as real, right? So even the two groups of people you're talking about, half of them perceive that as an opportunity, as a special superpower, but the other half do perceive it as a disability. And so it does become a disability because they have deemed it so.
For sure.
Yeah. So with that, let's dive a little bit to the other side of your journey and in looking at public policies, right? That was in New York. What was it like and how did you play a part in that?
Again, because I was frustrated that the buttons in the US, I know. In the US, there are the buttons where they automatically open doors if you cannot physically open doors yourself. They're like blue buttons in the US. And because those didn't work on my campus that I was on, as well as the neighboring campus, they barely worked. So I basically went around writing down which buttons work, which don't, which fed into my app as well, but also in policy work, where I was basically petitioning that these buttons should be tested regularly and be functional if the building is open. So for example, if you have a library that is open from 9 a.m. to 6 p.m. The button should also be working from 9 a.m.
AM to 6 p.m.
It's common sense. But
Yes.
unfortunately, it wasn't common. The buttons only open, the library open at 9 a.m., for example. The buttons would open at like 11 because the person has to come, has to open the library, has to think, has to do XYZ before even remembering, oh, I have to
What
open
it
the
sounds
button.
like. Wow. So how long it took you to research, go around campuses to find out like which button's working, which button's not working?
Took a while. I was one of the
Wow.
few wheelchair users on my campus. So I was at like the office basically every day. Be like, okay, this one's working, this one's not working. Give them a
So
list.
they kind of know you already when you go to the office.
Yeah, they're like, hi, you're back.
You again.
But after like a few months, they were like, okay, yeah, we're getting to it. We'll try. Okay, we'll fix this one. And not much happened. So I decided,
Mm.
okay, we're escalating this. So I went to the city council, and it took me 1 year for the city council to agree to actually mandate that the buttons should be functional as long as the building is open.
1 year.
1 year. Took me
And how
1
long did
year.
it take for them to agree and then for it to actually work?
I think another 6 months.
Good Lord.
Like,
1.5 years for you to finally live.
for the buttons to
Oh,
work.
Wow.
how long were you in the university?
1.5 years.
That is the
So
contribution.
you didn't get to enjoy it.
Not really.
You just
But in all honesty, right, Alysha, this is fantastic, right? How
you made
many
a difference
people?
to the
Yeah,
next generation
yeah,
of students.
exactly. Like how many people, right, would have the tenacity and the grit to keep going and
Keep
escalate it
pushing.
up? Yeah, to push. It does take quite a character, right? To
Mm.
have that determination to like, go all the
To
way.
persevere all the way, man. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Hats off to you. Hats
Thank
off to you.
you.
So
Good job, Alysha.
how have this played a part in your decision to become a neurodivergent clarity strategist?
Yes, throughout like between 18 to like now 26, those years, I was working in so many different fields from
Mm,
like logistics to airplanes to media to tech to policy reform and so many others, that I realized that the one thing that I was really doing well was identifying problems and finding solutions to those problems, no matter the field. This
mm,
is where the strategist part came in. Also part of the clarity wise, because what I found was neurotypical or non-disabled humans have a very unique way of overcomplicating things.
Humans.
of overcomplicating things. My
Yeah, we
goodness.
overcomplicate
Tell us more.
everything.
Do you have
And
examples of how we overcomplicate things?
I realized that neurodivergent brains can simplify and give clarity quite quickly because of the way our brains process things.
Mm,
So for you guys or for your listeners, you may say like, I've tried ABC and nothing's working. I'd be like, because you haven't done 1, 2, 3. You jumped from step 1 to step 10.
mm,
The steps in between are missing.
mm.
And you think it's linear, but it's not linear.
Could it be because we take for granted or because we just don't see it?
Yeah, for sure. So generalizing here, a lot of
Yes.
people without disabilities don't see the hidden or the smaller steps you need to take to get to point from A to B. You assume that, oh, this already exists, or this already is not my concern, which is something I realized where like, and it's not your guys' fault. You just take things for advantage if you don't experience it. Like coming back to the example of when I pitched, I had to call the guy for the elevator, like key, right? For you guys, you would see, oh, there's stairs. I can just take the stairs. But if you can't use the stairs, you have to think, okay, what are the alternatives? Do I give up and go home, or do I find a way? How do I find a way? Oh, there's a lift here. Wait, it's locked. Oh, there's a sign. Let me get my phone. Let me call the guy. Those are things that you guys didn't even see because you saw stairs, which is why the clarity comes in.
And also,
Does
your
that make-
perspective is from a different point of view, right?
Yeah.
The options that may be available to those without the same challenges
Mhm.
are not present, right? And for those with the challenges, they have a different set of, I guess, options as well. So that's why both sides may not see the same things.
Yeah. So that's why I say that my disabilities are superpowers, because it gives me clarity. I
Mm,
can see 5 different routes where you guys may only see 1 or 2.
mm,
And the neurodivergent part is that because of my brain, sometimes prefer to work with people with similar brains with me, so I can
mm.
help neurodivergent founders identify problems and find solutions that even they might be missing. Because also I have been in so many different fields before even 2026. I understand a lot of different complexities, and I can see the intersections between modalities, I guess, better
Tell
than
us more. What
solving
does
them.
that mean?
Like, basically, because I've taken skills from like logistics, I've taken skills from policy, I've taken skills from all these different things that I've experienced. I'll give you another example. An art
Yes.
gallery came to me and asked me that they were having trouble making their space more accessible to people with disabilities. And because I worked with apps, I had the knowledge that NFC tags can be used on like specific artworks where the artists can describe, like verbally describe their piece, their motivation, the colors, whatever that they wanted to share. And the NFC tag can just basically, use your phone to like tap it so it reads it out loud to you. But because the art gallery owners were only focused on the lighting, the visuals, how I make people come to my gallery, all those things were their scope of knowledge. But because I had the knowledge of technology, I could bring in NFC tags and be like, okay, you can use this to make it more accessible, which also ties into universal design, because there are people who enjoy art and want to know the backstory of an art piece, but the artist may not always be around to be like, I chose blue because blue represents that. The artist cannot always be there, but wants to explain that. So they adopted my NFC tag idea, and it's been a few years and they're still using it. Was in
Nice.
Australia.
Mm.
So
Very
like,
nice.
because of my knowledge of various different things, I can connect and find solutions. That's where absolutely just comes in.
Awesome. So, Alysha, based on your experience as a neurodivergent clarity strategist, right? What are some things that can individuals could do so that they can be more sensitive to those who may be different from them?
Billy did talk about how language also is very important when we're discussing different abilities. So that is definitely one to be mindful of, how you talk about and to people with disabilities.
Mm.
One more thing that can help. I thought of it. It went away. Give me a second.
Sure, take your time. All good.
Oh yeah, don't assume that you know everything. Always be willing to learn from people with disabilities. So the listeners are already doing a great job because they're listening to a person with disabilities perspective. And that is also a really big thing, because sometimes people have bigger egos and think they know everything, or they don't want to hear people with disabilities perspective. And it is the truth that people with disability and without disabilities have different experiences. They have different points of view as well. And the only way that someone can actually learn is to talk to each other, have discussions, have conversations, join communities for people with disabilities. I know a lot of organizations have open days where they encourage people without disabilities to talk to people with disabilities and see how we can learn and how we can grow by talking to each other.
So, Alysha, can I ask you, just now you were talking about how you prefer working with people who have similar who are neurodivergent, right? So,
Mhm.
how is it? Have you ever experienced before you work with people who thought they are not neurodivergent, but then as you work with them, you actually find out that they are actually neurodivergent?
Yeah, it does happen because a lot of people, especially in Asia and Malaysia, especially, think that neurodivergent only means autism. That is one of the biggest misconception it is. But actually, neurodivergence encompasses ADHD, dyslexia, autism, and I think those are the main three. I'm maybe forgetting some, but those are the main three that categorize under neurodivergent. And because in Malaysia, diagnosing is a long process and not as advanced as countries like US and Australia. A lot of people don't get diagnosed until quite late or never get diagnosed, which brings back to the point where I only got diagnosed with dyslexia because I was taking a special education class in New York. And in that class, we learned about different disabilities and how dyslexia people see differently than people without it. And I realized at that point, I was like, wait, no, everyone doesn't see this? Like, what do you mean? Which is how I did get tested at 19.
So, what did it feel like growing up then?
It was quite challenging because I spent like kindergarten to grade 4 in Pakistan and then grade 5 to grade 12 in Malaysia, in KL.
Mm.
So I was struggling even like in grade 2 and 3 with reading and spelling. And the teachers there were not comprehending that I was struggling. They're like, oh, she's just not very smart. And because Pakistan is more backward, I guess, or not as advanced as Malaysia, especially in the education sphere, they label kids with disabilities as not good enough. And unfortunately, a lot of them fall through the cracks. So my parents did say that Malaysia would be a better academic environment for me. So we did move here in grade 5, and I didn't have learning support because I went into international school. So I did get tested, and they did say I had difficulties with education, especially with verbal directions and like paying attention to teachers as well as like spelling and things like that. So I knew I needed the extra help, but I didn't know why I needed the extra help until my diagnosis.
And that was 19.
Yeah, I was 19 at the time. And because I did my master's in teaching as well the goal was to become a teacher, but life happened. Oh, at that time, I did my thesis on one of the 12 dyslexic schools in Malaysia. And to put into context, the Ministry of Education in 2020 said that there's 13,302 students with dyslexia in Malaysia. So you have 13,300 diagnosed children with dyslexia, and you have 12 schools for them. I wanted to see how effective these schools actually were. So I did a case study on my thesis on what this one specific school and how effective the school was. And like I found so much interesting facts about like when I wrote my thesis. How like before 2019, dyslexic students weren't allowed in exclusive schools. Which means that
Weren't allowed.
They weren't. Oh, before 2019, which is very recent, considering it's 2025. 2019 is very recent. Before 2019, kids who are diagnosed with dyslexia or suspected to have dyslexia were forced into government schools or international schools. Those were their options.
Wow.
After 2019, the Ministry of Education decided that, okay, we will have specific schools for kids with dyslexia, which comes in the 12 in the entire Malaysia country. There are 12 schools for students with dyslexia. And a lot of them, like half of them, stop at grade 6. So these schools have dyslexia interventions until grade 6. And then again, they're forced into government schools or international schools, which also creates tension because my thesis, I found that a lot of the teachers at this specific dyslexic school, teachers found that they weren't prepared or weren't given enough training to aid in helping dyslexic students learn. And these are teachers who are specifically entering dyslexic schools. They're not government schools. I mean, Nancy, you can talk more about education than I can, but
To be honest, I have very, very, very limited knowledge on special needs schools and special needs children. I don't really know how the system is because it's different from the mainstream schools. And only recently, I don't know how recent it is, that they actually incorporate special needs school into the mainstream school. So they have like a special section whereby the schools cater for special needs children as well as part of the mainstream school. But other than that, I am not aware of.
so that also
And I
brings
think and I think the main ones are like for those who have difficulty hearing, talking. So those are the main ones, not so much of a neurodivergent kind of students that I know of.
Yeah, so it does bring back into the perspective of how unprepared a lot of teachers feel when working with students with disabilities, especially neurodivergent students, because we learn differently. People with people with dyslexia actually learn differently than those without. Like, I know one of the biggest things for me is to have words on a paper and have it like listen. No, I can say that better. For me, I feel that like I learn best when I can visually see the words and hear the words at the same time, as well as having something called a reading ruler, which basically only highlights one line at a time. So it breaks long pages of text into smaller lines or chunks for my brain to understand the content. And those are things that like teachers can use. So even when I was in high school, if I had printed like a textbook, for example, I would ask my teachers for a blank piece of paper to cover parts of the paper so it was easier for my brain to understand.
When did you realize that that helped you?
Actually,
the one with covering the words.
Yeah, so my learning support teacher recommended it, and because in international schools, learning support teachers are of the degrees to work with special education students. So they have specialized knowledge in education as well as special education. So she recommended having a paper. And at first, I thought it was a very stupid idea because I was like, why would a paper help me read? It's just a paper. It's very simple, right? So I actually didn't want to use it for a while. And then one of my friends actually I went to the bathroom and my friend put a piece of paper, kind of like off center, but kind of still covering the paper. And then I tried reading, like with the paper my friend put, and I was like, oh, wait, this actually helps.
So since then, everything that you read, you will use
If it's
paper
very
to
text
help it.
heavy, if it's like a full page of like words, if it's like a paragraph or like something short, I don't need the paper. I've kind of trained my brain to read without it. But if it's like a full like essay or textbook or whatever, like a lot of words.
How about if, let's say, it's like a comic, it's not words, but, the page is still full of pictures and words like here and there. Will that like make it difficult?
I don't think so because there is that differentiation between pictures and words, and it's not like a full page of words.
Yeah, and on this note, right, I think it's also a great opportunity to talk about the fantastic app that you built at the recent Lovable
Lovable.
Hackathon.
Yeah,
Could you
so
let's deep dive into it.
Yes. So I thought of the idea because the first idea that I had was just changing the font to a dyslexic friendly font. The one that's been researched the most is Open Dyslexic font, and it's specifically weighted heavier at the bottom. So it helps the brain recognize top from bottom. So letters like P and B can be easier distinguished with this specific font because of the heavy weighted at the bottom. And I also found that the reading ruler doesn't exist online. The font does. There are lots of plugins where you can change the font to the specific font that does help, like I was talking about. But the reading ruler does not exist online, like at all. There are no plugins, there's no app, there's no nothing. As far as I'm aware.
That's why we need Alysha.
Yes, so I'm the innovator.
Alysha did it again, once more.
Yeah, so the app started with just those two features, but because of the hackathon, the streams were more employment focused. One of the options was employment, right? Creating accessible employment. So that's when, after talking to like ChatGPT and like trying to figure out, okay, this tool helps people with dyslexia, but how do I help like managers and HR people to make their workspaces more accessible? The first thing I suggested was having an empathy like preview, basically, where it actually shows manager, HR people, anyone really, what dyslexia actually looks like. Because even when the people at my table, I was asking them different opinions, because I think I also asked you, Jonathan, about some questions. I need a non-dyslexic person to be like, which one should I use? So I did use ChatGPT and Lovable to create an empathy preview, basically, where it showcases what dyslexia looks like. Because a lot of times also I found that the examples online weren't quite accurate. They show the letters moving around a lot or very exaggerated. They didn't depict dyslexia accurately enough for me, so that's why I created the empathy preview. And then secondly, I added a little questionnaire to basically prompt employers to help them create more accessible environment. And again, I asked you, Jonathan, for like how to make it better, because you were like around, like helping. You were one of like the mentors, right?
Yep.
And that also was quite interesting because it was a different perspective for me. I thought of dyslexia always in a school environment to help kids with dyslexia, not so much helping adults with dyslexia. But because of my like strategic neurodivergent brain, I managed to build the MVP, like the prototype demo, in like less than 3 hours.
Yeah.
And like I was basically walking around chilling for like a lot of time because I was just like, okay, I'm done. And everyone else was like stressed because like there were 200 people that like were in that event, right? And out of 200 people, 83 people submitted their apps, which is wild. That's less than half of the people actually submitted their apps within that time frame. And like my ND brain was like, nope, we can do it in 3 hours. Then
I love it. Andy Brain.
yeah, so I think I did it in like 2 hours and like 40 minutes or something like that. Like I built a whole thing. And like everyone else was like stressing about like the time, and like they had like the timer thing as well to like add stress.
Yes, I was stressing out.
And I was like, okay, what am I doing? Oh, what are you doing?
What's next?
I had one person actually tell me, I'm trying to focus on finishing. Can we talk later? So I was like, oh, okay. I'm done.
Love it. Love
And
it.
like,
In all this, go for it. Sorry.
I'm really surprised that like I got top 8. Because like when they were like saying that like they were like, oh, this dyslexic app is trying to like change the name, like change the game or whatever he was like saying. And I was like, oh, my first thought was, oh, someone else was doing dyslexia. And I was like, oh wait, no, it's me.
Yeah.
I'm doing dyslexia.
But yeah, when you presented the other day, everyone was so focused and like everyone kind of like stopped talking Like,
Yep.
Yeah.
every other presentation, like, you could still hear people talking. Yes, there were some still paying attention, but yours were completely silent. Everyone was just looking at the screen. And
Yeah.
I guess that awareness that you brought that day was very significant, even
Yeah.
to me. Like, especially, like, having that reading ruler. I mean, the part where you showed about this is how dyslexic people see alphabets. That one I've
Mm,
seen through the movie, which I
yeah.
shared with you before, Tarampam, a Hindi movie. But when you showed that ruler, I was like, wow. I was just amazed by your ruler. See, again, it's like a simple thing, but yet it makes such a big difference. And yeah, like what we've said earlier, like people who don't go through it wouldn't get it or wouldn't think of it. Yeah, so
Yeah.
it is an eye opener to a lot of us,
I
especially
had a few
myself.
iterations like with Lovable as well. It wasn't understanding what I wanted. I was like, no, make everything else. No, let me move the line. I was like trying to
Wow.
argue with Lovable, be like, no, this is not right. Do it right. But thankfully it worked.
At that moment, it wasn't really lovable.
Like, why are you not doing it? At that point, I was like, maybe this is why no one else is doing it.
And
You've
for
thought,
that moment, yeah, when you presented that, no pun intended, but it was the clarity that you brought to the table that gave a lot that made the audience awestruck at your solution.
Yeah.
I remember sitting at the corner, just observing the crowd, and the crowd of 200 odd people, right? Just like what Nancy said, fell to silence and were just in awe, being able to look at the world through your lens. So that clarity was fantastic. Yeah, you made a difference.
you're
I felt
always
like
making a difference, Alysha.
aiming to, yes. I'm trying to make the world a better place.
Amen.
But yeah, it was really cool experience. Like this was my first like hackathon and like making something so important for my own brain and for a tool I wish I had when I was doing like studying as well, especially to like being able to present it. And even like I remember very clearly that after I presented and everyone was like announced and we were still kind of hanging around, someone like came up to me and they were like, you sound like a founder, because I was like, I think I was one of the few that like didn't stumble and I was like right on time and like I didn't even prepare anything.
Yep.
I was just like going with, and like I managed to like
Yep.
even my timing was like 5 seconds before the DDD went
Mm.
off. I was like, okay, that's time. Thank you.
Because you have had practice since 18.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But also, I was
So
really
so with
surprised. One of the judges, I was really surprised when one of the judges was just like, "Oh, I have dyslexia, and like this is a really cool app." And I was just like, "Yes." If a judge can like recognize that as well as like you guys, be like, "Whoa, this is like so
Yeah.
cool."
yeah.
Like I did my work because like I wanted to show the world like dyslexia, because a lot of dyslexia tools that exist only read out loud pictures or like textbooks and stuff. Not a lot actually help you read, which was a key differentiation with my app Legible. That I wanted to be able to help people with dyslexia actually read, which is why I put the font and the ruler, because I know from my thesis and from my own experience that combination really does help people with dyslexia.
Actually, I was just wondering, right, as you were just talking just now, is there a possibility of like creating an app for just the ruler? And so like people who needs to read, they can just download the app and then they can have that ruler anywhere they want, like for any, I don't know, any text or PDF files that they need to read, they can just plug it.
Yeah, I mean, I was considering just having that as like a Chrome plugin, just to have the reading, so you can access documents.
Yeah.
But I'm also considering like basically licensing Legible to like schools or companies, so the whole app can be beneficial to a lot of different people.
Right
Yep.
to Apple.
Sorry?
Right to Apple and Google.
No
And let's
pressure.
hope that we don't wait until 1.5 years for it to happen. I'm sure they are more efficient than that.
Yeah. Google's
Yeah.
iteration is like crazy. Google, I think Google's like one of the top companies who actually take feedback and buy tech from other people and iterate it really fast into their own suite.
Mm.
Yeah, I had an investor actually ask me if I wanted to implement this into like Google Drive and Google Suite, like the ruler and like the font changer, into like directly into like Google Suite. And I was just like, I want it to be more accessible, I guess, in a sense. I want other companies to have it. I don't necessarily want a big company because dyslexia, this one is really close to my heart. I don't want a bigger company to basically buy it from me.
Yeah. Yeah. And we won't know whether they will even use it or not. Then the world won't see it. Then what's the point? Yeah. I get
Yeah.
you. I get
But
you.
even now, Google Drive has like hidden features that you have to like know of or have to like configure your drive in a certain way for some features to even pop up.
Yeah. Correct. So, Alysha, like, let's switch gears a little bit, right? You've spoken about how you've built solutions for companies, for individuals, for institutions, even went to city council to, I suppose, lobby, right, for accessibility.
Mhm.
For Malaysia, right now that you are in Malaysia, based in Malaysia, if you could redesign how Malaysia supports neurodivergent learners tomorrow, right? People with dyslexia, maybe ADHD, autism, right? What is the first shift you would make?
That's a big question. There are some organizations that are trying to change Malaysia's ecosystem. I recently spoke with another founder who is building a really cool app as well to basically act as a directory to show which malls and which places are accessible. So I think everything starts with awareness and knowledge. If a lot of people have the awareness and knowledge of a problem, then and only then can we start solving the problem. Earlier this year, I was trying to host a workshop on accessibility and try to help companies kind of experience disabilities in a sense. It's also have workshop like solutions. But a lot of the bigger companies in Malaysia denied the request. They said it wasn't needed. So I'm
Really?
not going to name companies, but I'm just saying that a lot of spaces in KL denied my request and said that, oh, no one will attend. So, like I said, the more workshops or the more talks or the more media that is shown to showcase neurodivergent disability founders, students, managers, teachers, everyone, the more aware the community as a whole can be towards problems or systematic issues. And the more awareness there is, the more you have the chance of changing how systems are in a country.
Right. So on that note, right, to create more awareness for teachers, parents, managers, founders, leaders, team leads, as long as you're leading a group of people or even one individual, for these people who are listening, what is one practical thing they can start doing today to better support someone with a learning challenge or difference?
I'll give you a few ideas because we spend a lot of time on social media, and I speak generally, we spend a few hours on social media. Follow creators that are showcasing disability problems. I am one of them, and I know some of the others as well. In Malaysia, in other countries, they're the ones who are bringing light into what problems are there. Follow them. Listen to what they're saying. Everyone can follow specific accounts on Instagram or TikTok, YouTube. And the second one is if you can attend physical workshops where these things are being discussed. I know that there are lots of organizations that do have these events. I can't remember from the top of my head, but there are workshops happening in KL that everyone can benefit from. We attend tech events because we want to learn about tech. So why can't we attend neurodivergent talks because we want to learn how to support them? I think those are the two main things. And if you do have neurodivergent people on your team, ask them how you can help them. A lot of people with neurodivergent or disabilities are shy and they don't want to be like, hey, can you send me the meeting notes the day before? They don't want to ask for accommodations. But if you ask them, how can I support you? That opens the discussion and lets them be like, hey, I really appreciate you if you do this. Because like 10 to 15% internationally have dyslexia. That's 1 in like 10 have dyslexia internationally. Not to mention other disabilities as well. So chances are you probably have someone with a disability or who is neurodivergent in your team, in your class, in your environment, in your daily lives. So those are the top 3 that I would say everyone can do.
Fantastic. Cool. So we're coming to the end of the episode. Is there anything else that you would love the listeners to know about the work that you do and about dyslexia, which is close to your heart?
So I am looking for beta testers for my Legible app. So if you can find me on LinkedIn, if you're a manager or HR or a team leader and you want to help make your workspace more inclusive, or if you have dyslexia yourself and you want to test out my dyslexia tool.
So you have kind of touched about teachers just now. So if you were to broaden it out a little bit for teachers to parents and managers and even founders who are listening, what is one practical thing they can start doing today to support someone with a learning difference?
You know what I've found, especially with managers and people who are doing online videos like Zoom recordings or online webinars or anything like that, is that accessibility isn't on their mind. So they turn off key features like Zoom AI companion or captioning that disable their recordings. So one of the simplest things that they can do is turn on those features. For people with dyslexia, reading the captions and hearing what someone says improves their cognitive understanding. Same with using the AI companion. It helps them visually see what they have missed.
It really sounds like it's just the overall experience.
Yeah.
Right? Got it. Awesome. So finally, if you could speak to your younger self who was struggling quietly, what would you want her to hear or know from you right now?
Very emotional question. But basically, I would say that there's nothing wrong with the way I think, see the world, need help. Those are things that the world can adjust to me instead of me having to constantly adjust to the world. That inner acceptance is what I would tell myself. It took a while, but I have that acceptance now.
Nice. And it's all okay, right?
Yeah. I think one more thing as well is that it's not solely my responsibility to educate everyone about what I need and how to help and everything of that sort. I can point to resources, but sometimes it's your capabilities or option that you have to deepen your understanding. That makes sense.
Yeah, it does. I also think it's the level of empathy others should also have, and collectively all of us should build as well. So yeah, it's a collective effort.
Yeah.
Awesome. Now we have come to the end of our recording, and with that, we enter into our lightning round. How this works is that I'll just ask a question, and the first answer that comes to your mind, just share that with us. So it's quick and lightning-ish. Okay, so the first question, what is one book, podcast, or resource that has shaped how you think about your work?
I think tools like the ones I'm building, Legible Light, have also helped my work because they're tools that I wish I had 10 years ago when I was in high school.
If you had to describe your personal career journey in 3 words, what would they be and why?
I feel like the first one is jumping because I was always going to different places like policy, education, kind of all over, but they all shaped me to how I am today. I think inspiring would be the other because I always find ways to help other people in any career or experience I've tried. And the last one would be I've traveled so much and I've been experienced so many different countries and cultures, and everyone does things so differently. So I feel like that's also shaped who I am today. Because I was back in Pakistan, and that experience and how disability is focused in Pakistan compared to Malaysia is worlds apart.
Really?
Can you give an example of what was the difference, like the stark difference?
Yeah, I'm curious.
I think it's basically about awareness. Malaysia is fortunate enough to have a deeper awareness or more opportunities to learn about differences compared to Pakistan.
Nice. I mean, the very fact that they are asking and speaking with you, asking you to share more, I think they are heading somewhere as well. So
Yes, hopefully.
forward steps.
Yes.
Yes.
Actually,
okay,
I have one question.
Sure.
If you don't mind, John.
Go for it.
Sorry.
Go for it.
You know, just now when you were saying another word to describe is worldly, and
Yeah.
you were saying that you've been to many countries, and so like, you know, did that help you to have that inner acceptance, or did that ease the how to say, the way you see yourself, because you've been to so many countries and you've seen so many different things, and everybody is working differently. So you know, like, you know,
Sure,
after
yeah.
all, I'm just
For sure. I think because I
just
was
one
in
of the different.
Yeah, for sure. I was in Pakistan until I was 10, and then Malaysia till 18, and then France, US, Australia. So a lot of different countries have done things differently, and because countries are different is where I got some of the acceptance, because I got diagnosed in the US with dyslexia. But when I was in France and I was doing pastry work, being more hands-on helped me also realize that I don't always need written material to excel. My experiences around the world have definitely helped me with my acceptance and inner peace, I guess, about my disabilities.
I guess where you were being diagnosed also play a part. Would you
Yeah.
say that?
Yeah, it was
Right.
a really tough year and a half because I got diagnosed there and I got that outer acceptance and support. I definitely felt that really helped me with my growth.
Yeah. Thank you.
And on to the last question for our lightning round. If you could try any job for one day, what would that be?
I want to be a community center owner, like owning a
No.
center. That's my 5-year plan, to have a community center where I teach life skills and have space for people who come to do art and just have more of that community feel. In today's age, especially with AI and everything, a lot of people feel very disconnected and are craving more of that community feel. That's why I've been enjoying the hackathons that I've been going to this past year. A lot of these events like Jonathan has, and a lot of different things have kind of been helping with that community feeling. But I think the world needs more of it.
100% agree. Yeah, 100% agree. Awesome. Thank you, Alysha, for all that you have been sharing with us. Now,
Yep.
the final question I have for you is, how can our listeners be useful to you?
So I do have a Chrome extension called Legible Light that helps people with dyslexia with changing fonts and having a reading ruler, which is one of the first online. My website, inclusitech.com, has a lot of my services where you can book a strategy call or a website audit or download more of my apps that I'm working on in the future. So you can go check out my website as well. And I am active on LinkedIn as well to share my stories and experiences and things I've learned throughout being a founder. I think that's all.
Nice.
Yeah.
Fantastic. And what we'll do as well is that we'll also include the link inside the description of the podcast. And with that, thank you so much, Alysha. It's been such a pleasure listening to your stories, hearing your thought process about how you elevate the topic of accessibility, as well as those systems that make the world better. So thank you so much for this.
Thank you for having me.
Yes.
Take care.
Thank you. Thank you,
Nancie.
Alysha. Thanks for tuning in to the PivotLab Podcast. We hope today's story gave you both inspiration and insight, something you can carry into your own next move. If you found this episode valuable, Please subscribe to us on YouTube and Spotify, and follow us on Instagram and Substack for the latest episodes, content, and tools to help you design what's next. And if you know someone who could benefit from this, share the love. Most importantly, let's stay connected. We've got more stories, strategies, and blueprints coming your way. Until next time, keep going. Your next chapter is already unfolding.